Although quiet, we'll make it official. Call this meeting to order. 6:32. Welcome everybody. And calling the meeting to order, I seek approval of the agenda as outlined. You have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Brian and Mary Caitlin as a second. Easiest time to make amendments is right now if you have any, but it can be made any time during the meeting. No, seeing none, all in favor? No opposed? 6-0. That reminds me then of a couple items. Just want to note the absence of Marty Cardona, who had a work conflict tonight, so will not be attending. And in addition, I'm always supposed to discuss the fire exits, which are the doors you came in and then immediately to the left as you go out, or these doors on either side of the blue curtains will take you immediately outside as well. So we have 4 options. With the agenda taken care of, we are going to move immediately to our bright spot. I think I got a sneak peek of this one, kind of excited to see it.
So we have bright spots. Thank you.
Spots, plural.
Thank you, Mr. Forsgren. But today's a very important day. We're recognizing our school related professionals. Our school related professionals serve in our offices, our school buses, our cafeterias, our classrooms. Our hallways. They have so many important roles. They're behind every great activity that occurs. They're the very reason why we're able to, perform this work here this evening. We appreciate their contributions and what they give to our school community and to our students because it impacts our programming. And throughout the year, we celebrate multiple different groups, but as a whole, we're celebrating our school-related professionals. We're grateful for their heartbeat and what they contribute to our greater school community. Being recognized today in our schools and possibly throughout the week in different schools. So thank you, and thank you for being here this evening as well. Some of you heard.
If I could add that, I was
Please do.
just, I think, related to that, because I wanted to announce anyways, tomorrow night is the Wall of Distinction, and evidence in terms of the love and the dedication that our employees have of all types of employee positions. Wall of Distinction, if you look at that alumni list, it's mixed with all types of employees. It's really incredible. I remember the first time I was there in a Century getting it. It's like, just wow, what an impact that students had submitted a Century as a name in terms of interacting with them as they walked in the door, and then bus drivers, right, and what they have that impact. So I'm glad we're celebrating them as we want to celebrate all of our employees, but they all, regardless of position, make an impact on our students, and we're grateful for that.
Yeah, that's tomorrow evening, and Cindy Fortner, classroom teacher at Brooks Hill, Dave Lanning, who works in our schools as a school-related professional, but also was a certificated teacher at one point in time, and coach, John Baines, and Laura Mangarian, who's a school nurse over at Dudley. People who make a difference. We're looking forward to celebrating them tomorrow night. Like how I played that off? That was good. That was good work. Back to the bright spots. It's the season of giving, and this is just a little clip on a wonderful, powerful effort between all of our elementary schools, raising close to $10,000 for the Galisanos Children's Hospital. Community service is such an important part of our children's experiences. In a little bit, I'll be talking about this national group supported by the National Association for Superintendent of Schools. They talk about redefining ready, redefining life ready, career ready, college ready. And one of the major indicators is community service. And we're all about that. And it's grounded in research that students who learn how to give back, students who are civically engaged, are life ready, career ready, and college ready. The next bright spot, again, giving students authentic experiences, real life experiences that they can apply to greater contexts of their lives. Maybe it inspires them to greater feats. But we're really excited about Fairport Forward 2020-22. Getting students involved has been an important part of the design early phases as we are in the conceptual phases of Fairport Forward 2020-22.
A really initial gut reaction. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Maybe you're not sure. And separate them into piles, and this is going to give us a really quick instinctual look at what you are liking.
It's been so much fun, first of all. Like, I wasn't expecting it. I mean, obviously it's a very great opportunity to be able to be involved in, you know, my school, everyone's school, have a say in what's going on. But it's just been so much fun to meet cool people and go through that whole process. But it's just nice, like I was saying, to have a say, you know, like you feel like, well, like this is like what my school's gonna look like, you know, a couple years down the road.
Our music wing is used by so many people every day. Our art rooms and our tech rooms definitely need refurbishing as well. We need more storage, more space, and just having everything be newer and a little more reinvented is just going to make learning so much more fun, effective, and nicer overall.
I think this is really great because student voices will portray what like the student body really wants out of this space rather than something that maybe works in general, just very specific to Fairport, and the lived experience of the kids in each of these departments will help these future kids as things are upgrading and changing in the world. I think this will really, making these certain departments like tech and music, robotics, what have you, and art, like, be more updated and welcoming and clean and functional, will invite kids into these more specific spaces of the school that explore their interests so that every asset of the school is being highlighted and thriving.
Yeah, for sure. Especially, so, I mean, I'm a junior. I won't be here for these renovations, but that's totally okay. I mean, we have a very, very big student body, and with the 9th graders moving up to the high school in a couple years, obviously that makes a huge, huge impact, and there's so many students that are going to be affected by this. And for their sake, you know, to be able to have more productive environments, to be able to, you know, create more, you know, just a better environment for people to work in and live, I don't know, it's worth it.
Thank you to Lindsay Reddig, who did this one off the cuff, right? This was not staged. These students were excited to talk about their futures, redesigning spaces, what learning could look like, making learning engaging, exciting. So we had about 30 kids go to Labella Associates. Thank you to our partners at Labella who welcomed them and, you know, gave them opportunities to come up with some ideas and concepts that hopefully we could bring to fruition. But again, bright spots, things that happen. There's probably about 20 others that I'm missing, but I think this captures the essence of what we try to accomplish.
I love it in terms of what's not said as well, but this one of the students said it, it's not going to impact him. That's an education in of itself in terms of trying to do something that will make the place better for the next group of students that come in. He'll be gone by the time all those are finished. You know, it says something that they want to be involved and are excited about that. I think that's a nice civic lesson as well, civic responsibility. So thank you for the bright spot. Lindsay, thank you for that. That was great to see. Takes us to our public comment portion of this agenda. We have two tonight. As just a general reminder, the mentioning of individuals by name, unless it's a compliment, is typically not appropriate, and we can take that into a private session if you want. And public comments are limited to 3 minutes. I will name or call the individual with their address up to the podium, and when they start, I'll start the timer for 3 minutes and try and remember to give a 30-second warning. Sometimes I forget. I hope you'll forgive me. So first on the list is Nicole Allen, residing at 24 Misty Pine.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, it should be green if you press the button.
This is actually perfect. It kind of feeds off the bright spot. I actually just wanted to share 3 examples of real life things that are happening in the schools and examples of the impact that the things that you guys are doing and the district is doing that have on our actual students, not viral social media examples. One is the diversity and equity and inclusion work. I have an example of a first grade student. I had a group of 3 kids. And I do an activity called Toothy, and there's Toothy mats, and I try to have representation of multiple students, white girl, white boy, black girl, black boy, and others. And I had a first grader who was a black student, little girl, and I spread them all on my table, and she pointed to, she goes, that looks like me. And then that was the mat that she chose. And just her saying like, that looks like me. We've seen that on social media, but I heard that in person with one of my students. The other thing I know is very controversial, not controversial, but a lot of questions and concerns is the activity period. And I know there are concerns, and I hope that you guys listen to those and make adjustment and changes. But I know one of the reasons for it was to provide opportunities for students who might not be able to do it before or after school. And this was another example that I heard in the hallway, student skipping down the hall with his friend. Yes, I could have told him to walk, but I didn't have the heart because he was so excited as he was telling his friend, like, I'm going to pick up my orchestra instrument because I get to do orchestra. And I know this student, and I know he has a really tough home life, and there's no way he would have been able to get an instrument, get to school before or after to do orchestra. And he just, that excitement, I was like, that's why that work is important. And I know there will probably have to be changes, just as anything that's new is. The other thing is the Spark Lab. Love it. That's the thing my daughter talks about the most. Having a daughter and having her get to have experience with technology and math and science outside the things that I can provide her is awesome. It's what she talks about for her special area, but also, again, it being offered during the activity period. How much time do I have? Because I have one more thing. Do I have, how many? Oh, all right. And the last thing that I want to just say is all of these are happening with the academic piece too. If you want to find out more, I know Ellen Reed has put out, and she's going to have a community thing about the science of reading, and that has been happening over the years, and it's such a huge thing. And I know I've talked to you guys again about making it a priority for Superintendent's Day, et cetera, but that is happening in our districts, the programs, the curriculum, and it's huge. So just know that that is happening with Ellen, is having 2 opportunities for parents to hear about those things. So those are some great things from our actual students. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for the feedback.
And I think the first workshop or opportunity for parents is the 17th. Am I correct? I am correct. So I know we've put it out there, but again, I feel really strongly about this as well. And if parents have questions about what is happening with reading instruction, I would highly recommend that you attend these.
Thanks. Our second public speaker, Melissa Muzak, did I say it right? Yes. Residing at 136 Broadmoor Trail.
Okay, I was going to speak at the last meeting regarding this topic that I have here, but I've changed what I'm going to say because circumstances have changed. So I want to commend the board and Mr. Provenzano for your handling on the recent controversy related to the substitute teacher who worked in the district. The communication and support that has been provided to understand and handle this situation has been very well done and very appreciated, so thank you. But this unfortunate circumstance unsurprisingly brings up the correlation between the safety of our students and how that relates to the district's sex education program. It is important to point out that no student in the Fairport district were victims of this predator. It is impossible to know exactly why our students were so lucky. However, it quite possibly, and maybe even likely, is because they had the education and support to make them difficult to target by a sexual predator. To me, I can't help but come to this conclusion that our sex education program is working in the most important way. That is, it is keeping our students safe. Thank you for remaining strong and vigilant in maintaining this invaluable program for the safety of all students in Fairport.
Thank you. Okay. That will move on then to the president's report. Move over to my notes. I just think to continue on some of the highlights and emails and things that were recognized. I appreciated coming out of this school, the high school, the second DASA recognition breakfast, if you saw that note, where they honored 105 students. Were recognized by staff members for demonstrating respect, responsibility, and resiliency. So this is the second one, right? I think that's a huge volume of students that our employees, our staff members are recognizing students who are doing these things, and I'm glad that they call them out, that they celebrate them in their different activities. As part of our strategic plan, just to for everybody's purpose, but for those, since nobody really attends our workshops, right, that they are public meetings. But measuring progress, we went over measuring progress, data points, various assessments, and using the information for improvements as part of our strategic plan. It is our goal, our objective to also create a dashboard to put out there so we can share with people current status as well as progress over the years. So we have been looking at different dashboards around different school districts, and these things don't necessarily get built easily. At least I couldn't build it at all. But looking forward to things like that we'll be able to share with the community, and trying to always be more open about what's going on and where we stand. Loved that we just had Veterans Day. Having had kids go through Martha Brown, I love that they're keeping up with the tradition of having students going out and raking leaves on that day. Over 70 students giving up time on what should have been a school holiday for them, right? And going out and raking leaves for various veterans around the community. That was a follow to what happened at JA, and I don't know what happened at all the schools. I'm sorry, I'm just counting a couple that I know of. You'd think I might be more aware, but the Jefferson Ave Veterans Ceremony on Thursday was just fantastic and quite adorable, because, you know, kindergartens and first graders, fifth graders all singing to over 60 veterans was just fantastic. It was interesting, as preparing for that meeting, that event, I was thinking, I'm not sure why, so where does my mind go? Like, what's one of those symptoms of signs of freedom? And the answer in my mind, before I even left to go to the JA, was diversity, right? That without diversity, it's hard to argue that you have freedom, because people aren't feeling that ability to be who they are and the choices that they're able to make. And then going and seeing that diversity there, and efforts to do that, I thought was great, and grateful to all the men and women who sacrifice, you know, and give up time. It's just so much to be a veteran. Having a brother 20 years in the Navy, you see what it is and the impact on their family life, right, to be a veteran. And so we're grateful for that, and grateful for our various schools in the district for, again, teaching these civic lessons to our students through different ways. It's timely that on our policy first read tonight is the patriotism, you know, update policy, but I don't know if that's coincidence or not, but regardless, to see that happening in the schools, grateful that it's always happening.
I know Brooks Hill did a door decorating contest and to celebrate different branches of the military and different veterans, so that was wonderful. And I know at Dudley, Ellie came home and they had made books talking about what a veteran is, and they were to come home and ask their family about it and stuff. And so I just thought that was really just beautiful, and I really appreciate all of our teachers for celebrating that.
Yeah. And just a quick shout out to Buddy Nyhoff for carrying on the Martha Brown tradition, and Rebecca Short and the whole team there. But I know Dave Dunn did that for a lot of years, and I'm very happy to see Buddy continuing that, and students being very excited to do that on a morning off too, which is really, you can't overstate that. So
yeah, having participated is great. I loved seeing the students show up for it and support it. Were you going to add something? No, okay. No. That's all overall that I had, but open it up to the rest also for either other observations, but committee activity that you think is worth noting, whether it's the Monroe County School Board committees that we sit on or internal.
For Monroe County School Board Legislative, Erica Joyce and I have been attending. Working as a group with other school board reps, we finalized our position papers that we'll be using when we meet with state legislators in a few weeks, in December 4th or 5th. We'll be doing Zoom meetings with them. So some of the policy initiatives that we want to see at the state level. I think that was it from there.
Yeah, that was most of.
What areas of advocacy you want to there?
So I think one of the things that is it was a main topic of discussion in a lot of these was the zero emission bus mandate that the governor has mentioned. And I think one thing that we're working as an organization is trying to get some guidance and some clarity from the state on that. And by that, I mean any guidance or any clarity from the state. And you don't have to. I think, this is an important topic for sustainability, for a sustainable future. But there are a lot of logistical questions that need to be answered. There's a lot of infrastructure needs that need to be addressed. And I think right now it's a balancing act of recognizing those, but not letting those be roadblocks to something that is important. And of course, getting that guidance, getting those funding from the state, getting the funding from the state and figuring out exactly what this is going to look like in practice. So that's one of the main ones we've been talking about.
Yeah, thanks.
I know career pathways is another topic that has been brought up last year too. I know some of us were able to go to the New York State School Board Conference that was in Syracuse, and there was some talk on that, which I think is helpful. The Board of Regents is looking at, how they're going to be assessing what the pathways will look like, more of a focus. And I think I've been saying this, Damon was too for years, just about being career ready as well. And are there options for students who maybe college isn't their first route? Are there training programs? We did have, and I'm trying to think who was with me, Joyce, and I think Janice, we were talking with one of the folks that actually worked with Troy, and he was talking about one of the buildings in Syracuse that used to be a technical institute type school, but they are remodeling the entire thing, I think through New York State, and they're creating a regional, right? I believe a regional school that students not just within the city of Syracuse can participate in, but students in surrounding suburban districts. So I think there's some kind of outside of the box things that hopefully will be happening here as well, where students that might be more inclined to be doing some training programs with IT. I mean, it's very technical and hard, would have other options as well. So I found that exciting.
Mm-hmm. And one other thing from legislative, if I may, it's a smaller piece of a bigger issue, but the issue of teacher certification reciprocity is a big one. What that means is that teachers who are certified in another state, if they want to move to New York State, that there can be reciprocal acceptance of the certification. What that would do is hopefully help us hire more teachers and be able to address a lot of the teacher shortages that we have. Again, that's part of that's not its own issue. It's part of a larger thing, but it's something that a lot of school board representatives are looking for. And we've talked about that. Just a quick sustainability committee update, since I came from the meeting, literally from that meeting to this meeting. A lot of good work being done, a lot of grassroots stuff being done at schools, and starting green teams at all of the schools. Working Martha Brown again, Buddy Nyhoff, because he never sleeps. He's building his own garden there to kind of match the one that Heather Scherner's done at JP. And so working to kind of develop a lot of those programs in each of the schools to kind of build that culture within our district.
Great. Any others?
Just a shout out to our robotics team. They've set up little libraries at each of the elementary schools and put little kits for the kids to take home. So I had a very proud first grader bring home a little catapult kit today, and was just really excited and talking about how she can't wait to join robotics someday. So it's very sweet of them to do that.
Yeah, recruiting clubs. That's great. If that's it, then I will move on to the agenda to our superintendent's report.
I really appreciate, the comment about our strategic plan and how we're really looking at measures and progress indicators. I think as we continue to talk more about what it means to be future ready, and we'll continue to talk about multiple measures and multiple metrics that define what future ready actually means. And again, I started talking about community service and giving students an opportunity to give back to our community. It's the season of giving, and there's not going to be a community or a school district that does as many great things. And here, the ENL Fall Family Gathering, we'll have students and families and staff members come together and just to be with each other at the holiday time. Martha Brown just was at Martha Brown, and they're preparing for the gratitude walk. Right, and I think that's powerful. That service idea of giving, which we'll be talking more about. Again, we talked about the fall crawl. Tomorrow night there's a jazz charity concert. Right, it's done yearly. These are our musicians giving back to the community. And Northside Student Council Buddies, where kids are interacting with each other, intergenerational connections with each other. Again, things that are happening. But I would also say, there's lots to celebrate relative to our interscholastic sports teams, right? There's 12 varsity teams this fall, over 265 athletes. Our boys and girls cross country made history, if you will. They won sectional titles as a team, and both runners from that school won individual Section 5 titles. So, yeah, and we have coaches of the year, not only there in cross country, but also in field hockey. So you follow any of our social media feeds, lots to celebrate, lots of life lessons that are occurring beyond the classroom, which I know is a board priority. But we have just as many modified teams, right, and just as many participants in modified teams. So those numbers would translate. It is confirmed by Athletic Director Fritz Killian. At the same time, there's opportunities. Annie Jr. is being played at Johanna Perrin, and I know they're looking forward to that show this weekend, along with the Christmas Carol, which is another great show I just was able to see before I came here. And our students, 75 performers there, 75, right? That's pretty powerful. And JP will have proportionately, relative to their school size, about 40 to 50 individuals participating. So great opportunities, lots of things to be excited about. Oh, and by the way, the Great Gatsby at the high school last week, powerful. So done with so much passion and historical relevance, and our students are a part of that, and they embrace that, and I know our families and our staff and community enjoyed it as well. It also goes to the pieces that Board President Forsgren was speaking about. We are focusing on having real conversations about our assessment data and talking about where we need to continue to build upon, where we need to continue to improve. Nicole Allen was here speaking a little about the reading program. I do hope that community members do take advantage of that. Ellen Reed has done an amazing work as we try to develop curricular coherence and making sure that we have quality assessment measures along the way so we can prepare students academically. And that also means the number of AP classes students are taking, we're focusing on. That means the number, our Regents outcomes. I think Erica, you were speaking about enrollment in career and technical education. These are all pieces that are tied to redefining this concept of college, career, and life ready, driven by research, which I can share the resources that we are aligned to these best practices that speak to having our students be high performers, both in and out of the classroom. We're really excited. We do so much as we talk about our budget season. It talks about our priorities directly related to this concept of future ready raters in our strategic plan. And as we move along, we'll be talking more about what we learned from our journey with the strategic plan. So thank you for initiating and supporting all the pieces associated with redefining what future ready means. I'm going to pass this over to Mr. Loff. He's going to speak a little bit about hiring and how we're doing with per diem substitutes and our bus drivers.
Thank you, Mr. Provenzano. Yep, as you can see here, we're running our totals from the start of the school year. As you know, the 22-23 school year starts on July 1, so that's why it starts with July and goes through November, which is tonight. So you can see per diem substitutes. We've added 33 new per diem substitutes this school year so far, in addition to the cadre of substitutes we already have. We continue to utilize an MOA for our teachers to be able to cover extra periods as well for pay, which is really helping us as well. And I know around the county that's saving districts as we work through these shortages. Bus drivers, we're excited to report that we've hired 16 new bus drivers this year already. If you think about previous years, you wouldn't see a number like that just a few months into the school year. So I think our advertising is working, and kudos to John Kidd and his team with the interview process, and they're bringing on some great folks.
I hope that we can add another column, and I know that will be a focus area, but, again, talking about, our essential workers, our maintenance crew and custodial crew, keeping our buildings clean and functional. And I know that's going to be a priority in the near future. We appreciate their work and talk about the number of openings and opportunities in that areas. This is pretty, we're in need. Thanks, Mr. Loff. I am going to pass this on to our discussion portion. Fairport 4 2020-22 will be going over some frequently asked questions that have been coming up. So that's all I have. I would like to say the importance of gratitude. I'm grateful to be a part of our incredible community, grateful that we get to serve our students and give them opportunities that they otherwise wouldn't be able to experience as we approach the holiday season. That's something to which I'm grateful and thankful for. So I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
And Brett, I just, in the off chance that all of you don't stay for the entire time, which we would love, I just wanted to mention that there are more opportunities if people do want to come to hear the presentation about Fairport Forward. And I think you said that we had maybe added one more.
There's going to be another, since I could jump, thank you very much.
Sorry, I just want to make sure.
That's fine. December 13th is the vote, but, on the 29th, we're going to have an informational session right here at 6:30 in room 512. And then we just added one. It's a community walkthrough. This one's going to be a little bit different. We're going to talk about areas and spaces that have been renovated, do a tour of the renovated spaces, but also then have highlights on where we need to move forward with Fairport 4 2020-22. There's a special edition of the commentator coming out, hopefully in between their holiday break. So when they come back the 5th, they'll be ready and excited to come to another presentation. So I appreciate that fine.
You should all stay for the entire meeting, but just in case.
Well, and I hope people will show up on the 5th one to do the comparison of our science classrooms, what we still have. Some of them are still being renovated, and what we have, like I say, when we did a tour last year and the new ones were being used and walked across the hall to an old one, I was like, how are these students not in rebellion walking out saying, I want this facility, why am I stuck in this one? Yeah, it's incredible the contrast between the rooms and how old they really got. And well, just anyway. But come see that, because that applies to the music rooms and the arts rooms and everything, where they're still have gotten outdated as much as many other
and the
things.
technology spaces.
The technology spaces. So the walkthroughs will be really, I think, both informative as well as just cool to see what it looks like when it's done, right? What the new ones are, and the excitement that the students are generating themselves. We saw that in the Bright Spot, but when they came back this year and the cafeteria was now usable by them, everything was great. So a lot of work to be done, there's no doubt about it, but we're making progress.
29th and December 5th.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you, Erica. Appreciate it. No, that's great.
You're just saving us time later. So the rest of that is at 6B on the agenda for those who are here for that. But we will give the time to Mr. Matt Stevens, our Assistant Superintendent for Business, to go over the treasurer and investment update.
Great, thank you and good evening. Tonight we have the Treasury and Investment Update for the month of September of 2022. We had a beginning cash balance in the general fund of $49.8 million, receipts for the month of $71.8 million, disbursements of $11.4 million for an ending cash balance of $60.4 million. Of the $60.4, about $58.3 million was invested in a mix of money market, primarily T-bills, and insured cash sweep account for about 96% of the total cash. Receipts for the month, you can see majority related to taxes, and you'll see that again in October when we go through the October receipts and treasurer's report. Revenues, very similar to prior year, about $87.4 million in revenues received, primarily taxes, and expenses of $20.4 million overall. And that is the report for the month of September of 22.
Thank you. Taxes are just shy. So the bigger part, we'll see the October report will be the bigger chunk of it, right? The vast majority, with a little bit left over that comes in April when the county collects the difference. But I wanted to shout out, if that's okay, speaking of gratitude, then to the town I don't know, like I shared this with most of you, but I'll share with the public some of my sick mind. I don't know if that's what it is. Years ago, and I still do it to today, when I was taking in my taxes, I don't believe in checks, but I'd always cut a check for my taxes because I wanted to see, since I'm in the banking industry, how long it took to leave my account to get into the town's account, ultimately to the school account, right? And so this is back in the early 2000s. I would walk it in, I'd drop it off the day they were due. And for many years, for most of my time here at Fairport, it was no less than 10 days, generally more than that. And to give you an idea of what that means, I just quickly did a calculation, right? On every $5 million at 3.5% interest, which is what the 30-day US Treasury bill is today, every 10 days represents lost opportunities of about $4,800 in interest. That it was sitting, I was happy that it sat on my account, right? But that was a lost 10 days to the school district. Now, when I take it in, it's the next day. So the town, whatever changes they made suddenly, it's out of our accounts. It's working for the public, maximizing our dollars. Appreciate, as you put at the bottom of this report, for those who've looked at it, the amount, $44 million sitting in T-bills. Okay, so those rates as of today, like I say, are about 3.5%. I know you probably had some before. Rates are all over the place right now, going up and up, as well as inflation. But this is how we try and keep up with inflation as well, is maximizing it. So grateful to you for doing a great job, but grateful to the town collecting that money quickly and allowing it to work here for us, because we'll collect $70 million. So 5 million goes into 70 how many times? And you think of 5,000 of those 10 days that we used to lose. Now we're getting that very quickly. And it's impactful on our students, it's impactful on our budget, our revenue, and put it to good work. So thank you all around. Appreciate that.
And if you're home, or if you want to look later, it is under the treasurer's report under 4C. So I know sometimes we refer to it, but it is down below.
Right, thank you. And the consent calendar there in the public area is available to view by everybody. Numbers is what I do. Okay, to the consent calendar. Remember, this part is all approved in a motion, not open for discussion as per, I can't remember the Robert's rules. So if you want to discuss any element of this, now's the time to ask it to be removed. Otherwise, I'll seek a motion for approval of the consent calendar and the 4 items that are in there, or the 3 items, with D being the approval. Joyce, thank you. Jan, second. All in favor? No opposed, 6-0. Takes us to personnel actions, 5A on the agenda. A motion to approve the instructional staff actions as outlined. Thank you for bringing them up on the screen too as well. Appreciate that. Brian, thank you. Second, Erica. Questions or comments? And wow, none. Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? No. 6-0. Non-instructional and civil service, motion to approve those as outlined. Mary Caitlin, thank you. Joyce, second. Comments or questions in this area?
Are there any retirements on there?
I'd just like to recognize one that's standing right out here in front of us, and out here in our audience frequently, Kathy Welch. Congratulations. Thank you for your years of service.
That was a setup question, right? Any
It was a
retired? No.
setup.
I mean, we seamlessly
Already knew it was
orchestrated
on there.
that. That was a great job.
All in favor? No opposed? No.
Oh, I know.
Trust me, we always want to vote no on retirements, but what good would
She
it
does
do?
not have 26 days and how many minutes?
Very good. And then athletics, motion to approve the athletics as outlined. Erica, second. Brian, questions or comments here? No, all in favor? No opposed, 6-0. And finally, in 5D, we have motion to approve the revised hiring and hourly schedules for personnel not covered by collective bargaining units. Those are in the administrative content in this case, but all in motion to approve. Mary Caitlin, thank you. Erica, second. Questions or comments here?
Yeah, so I know we just revised the salaries for non-collective. What was the changes that was coming up here?
Thank you. Great question. So we always set these rates prior to July 1 for the new year, so we did these back in June. A couple of different things happened after the rates were set. The first thing was we settled the buildings and grounds contract, which then, with those new rates, we had to go back and look at some of our head mechanic and bus expediter and some of those leadership type roles and make sure that they were at the appropriate hourly rate above the new rates set for mechanics and bus drivers. And then the other thing was in looking at our substitute nurse rates, our RN substitute nurse rate was not, now lower after we did some adjustments before than the starting LPN rate. So we needed to adjust that accordingly as well. Yep.
The goal is always recruitment and retaining, right, Mr. Love?
Other questions or comments? All in favor for these adjustments? No opposed, 6-0. All right, to our presentation. So for the 2019 capital improvement project,
We have Kevin Arlett.
Kevin, as always.
Brian, are you, you're sort of hanging out in the background supporting. Great. Thank you. And I see Troy here. Thank you very much. Oh, good lift. I was going to help you out. That was one swift move. He even, look at, he knows all the regiments. He's like, here's the clicker.
Once a month.
Alrighty, good evening. Here is our progress update for the 2019 capital improvement project. So just a quick look at the overall financials of the 56 million referendum. These are all the different components that make up that budget, including our prime contracts, state contracts, contingency budgets, incidentals, and available funds. A closer look at where we stand financially. Currently, based on contractor pay applications, we're just over 70% complete with the project. Through the month of October, we have spent 2.2 million in change orders, leaving us 1.2 left in the contingency, and still have around 345,000 in allowances. So looking ahead over here at the high school, we're continuing on in the buildings. Starting up in the second floor, we're going to be continuing punch list efforts in classrooms. We're currently renovating 3 biology rooms, preparing for furniture to be arriving in early December. We'll be prepping the floors for new flooring going in this week. And then out on site, we're still working on wrapping up through punch list and SWIP items. Staying here at the high school with the finishes project. Still coordinating those efforts for new terrazzo flooring and wall tile to be taken over district breaks and mostly the summer with the terrazzo work because it's so involved. Moving to 1B over at Martha Brown, we're installing new window blinds in classrooms, wall tile outside in the corridors. Jefferson Ave wrapping up the site restoration. Johanna Perrin continuing that boiler piping work. And then at Minerva Deland beginning exterior window replacements. Stormwater protection plan. Labella, what is it, every other week, 2 weeks?
Stormwater pollution prevention plan. Knew that was coming. Yeah. It's depending on the stage where we are in the process, you need to have achieved on your site, depending on how much of the site is being disturbed, you need to achieve a certain amount of vegetation regrowth or coverage. And also during construction, they outlined any deficiencies as opposed in terms of runoff, preventing any runoff from your site into any neighboring properties. So twice a week, they've got to come out and check. It's state mandated checks.
Okay, thank you. So just an overall look at the scope here at the high school. Again, we're continuing on upstairs with the science classroom renovations. The last big ticket item we have on there is the gymnasium, which we're slating for the summer. Again, that includes refinishing the floor, new paint job, and new athletic lines. And then the high school finishes project, again, cafeteria's been turned over, so we got the terrazzo all wrapped up in there, but it is the this hallway in the second floor where we're going to be putting up new terrazzo flooring, and again, we're slating that for the summertime. And then over at 1B, we're progressing very well through the buildings as our teams are preparing for the work come this spring over at Dudley and Northside, and wrapping up all the rest of the punch list work. Then our Smart Schools project, our controls contractor is wrapping up phase 1 and hitting a couple of punch list items as they prepare to get over to the phase 2 buildings. And then looking over here at the high school, here's a shot inside the boiler room with the pumps and insulation, all labeled and tagged. Just a close look at the new boilers and those, excuse me, and that piping. Just another shot of the insulation work going on in that boiler room. And then this is upstairs on the second floor in the halfway down the hallway, new air handling unit. And here's a look at one of the biology rooms we're currently working on. Fresh paint on the walls, ceiling grid going in. Again, we're preparing to install the flooring this week. And then going over to 1B, here's a look at the Martha Brown Finished Science room. And then their faculty lounge. And I think this is where we start to, and the toilet room. I think the rest of these are going to be looking at some boiler rooms. It's going to be a lot of piping, insulation work, cleaning up these boiler rooms, getting all of them fired up, ready for the cold season ahead. Here's Jefferson Ave. It's over at Minerva DeLand. And here's a look over at JP, some of the boiler loop piping we're installing. Are there any questions?
The ceiling at JP is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Do have a question, sorry, back on page 2, perhaps 3. 3 is a little bit more obvious, but it's because we're coming up here on our phase 2, and with the vote in December, one of the big items on the prior page, if you go back one more, is this incidental budget. I just thought, I'd ask, what's included in those things? Why?
So yeah, in that incidental budget, you have your architect fees, construction manager fees, any testing associated, asbestos testing, all of the items we did out at the field for infiltration testing, financial advisor payments come out of that budget line as well. Trying to think what else we have in there. Furniture, FF&E items in there.
So furniture, fixtures, and equipment, FF&E,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
So I kind of know the answer, but I just think that become more and more of a question. It's a large part in, right, these budgets, and it's just kind of a generic name. I just thought for the sake of those who might be listening, what is an incidental? What's in the incidental? Furniture, fixture, equipment, those are big, large, expensive items.
Also, sometimes when you are doing like fields or getting behind, ceilings or walls, you find things that you can't originally, assess, and you hope that you get it all when you do your estimates, so that helps support.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
I didn't want to bring that up.
Right, as soon as you tear up ground, there's going to be unsuitable soils.
And Peter, if I can just play off of that, and then the contingency budget, that's a state mandated percentage of the overall, is it, or is that how you?
Our estimates typically
Estimates, okay.
include, I believe it's 5%.
Okay, great.
5%.
Yeah, thank you.
And we can see it kind of has gone along in all the projects I've seen over the years, right? It tags fairly closely, 64% spent, 71% complete. Those again are contingencies, what we don't know at the time of the project. So it's.
And we're in a good spot with that currently, because not to bring up soils again, but we are through most of the site work, not only at the field, but also at Jefferson. So the next cone work that we have up, we're not opening up extensive roots that we're digging through to find more unforeseen. We can find stuff, asbestos, things behind walls, but that big burden that you saw from soil conditions isn't going to be present on phase 2.
And every project, right?
So quick question. So what happens if we have extra money? So we end the 2019 project in a few years. We have extra money. What occurs?
Mr. Stevens, why don't you?
Yep, so there's always work that gets cut out of any capital project when we go through the process, and when we do the seeker process, we try to ensure that if there are favorable bids through the process, or we don't need to spend all the contingency dollars or any of those pieces, that we have those items still identified. For example, the pool repair work is a high priority item that we've talked about, just simply the repair of what exists there, and that's one of the things that we actually have identified for funds available through this process. That's been on the list for many years with a tile and just fixing what's there currently. That's what we do. We identify a lot of the areas that have been on our building condition survey, need a repair, fit into the seeker process that we can continue to do work with. But through any project, we want to ensure that we're through the bulk of the work so we know that there's not another unexpected to anticipate, and we're starting to have those conversations a little bit more now as a whole. And as you remember, when we did the finishes project or bid process, that was related to a lot of the terrazzo flooring that we have here at the high school, as well as the wall tile finishes in the hallway down around the cafeteria gymnasium area. And those were areas that were identified in need of improvement. We've done much of it through the main hallway from the office down to the auditorium in a previous capital project, and that's work that you can see was bid out and moved through this process too, as we had that work identified in need of repair and replacement. So also always looking at across the district in terms of our maximum cost allowance dollars, so trying to identify where the work would also make sense to maximize aid as a whole. Yep.
Any other questions for Kevin? Great.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin and team.
Right, and team, thank you, always coming out in force. 2022 capital improvement project, we know when these are, a lot of what's in here has been presented in the past. It's not our intent to necessarily go through this yet again.
What?
but,
We're not going to go through it again?
Brett's got it down now.
I don't want to see it again, but I'm sorry. I know it's not about me, but.
Well, I would hope that this next part fluidly goes to the next portion, which would be the board discussion. There are no actions here, but I think, the board has been tuned in closely. This is an opportunity to ask questions or to take a look at the frequently asked questions for our vote on December 13th. The first question that we came up with, and again, this is a fluid conversation. These are on our website. The answers to these are also on our capital improvement website. But, why is the vote usually held in December and not May? And I'll facilitate the conversation and add where I can add, but I'll ask Mr. Stevens to jump in. And of course, board members, this is your opportunity to ask questions and jump in as well.
So the first piece in terms of the vote timing, through any project planning process, we identify, it's a little bit of backwards planning and overall as we're looking at construction work. So in this case, any fall votes allow additional time for design work to take place, for that work to get, those designs to get submitted to the state education department. It allows that timing for review in an effort to try to target the first available summer for the construction work to begin. So that's very important in the construction planning process. There are times where we may do votes in May that would sit as a proposition right along with the budget. We've done that in the past, but that has been work that we've been able to either start outside, during the school year. For example, we did roof work. We were able to identify some areas of roof replacement we were able to do. Some of that work also in terms of the type of review at the state education department can take more time. When you have simple architectural reviews like roof replacement, it tends to go through faster, so you can target summer sooner. But when you have large areas of review, mechanical engineering, architectural, and different pieces, there needs to be more time allotted for state ed to be able to review that, provide comments, ask questions. So long story short, our efforts are to try to target the first available summer that we can actually start that construction process, have the bidding process take place, and move forward as a whole, especially when you look at the 2022 project proposal. In an effort to get students into the high school from Minerva to Land in 26-27, we need every available summer of construction to prepare for that, for the type of work taking place. So that's a overall summary as to why votes timing can be either December or May, depending on the type of work taking place and design time, approval time needed.
Trey, did you want to add anything to that? I mean, because you do a good job of saying. Yeah, I appreciate it, and it is about getting as much time, minimizing the disruption on students with that extra summer. Ultimately, how are we going to fit 4 grades into Fairport High School when they're already very limited in space? It continually came up throughout our presentations. There's a community interest. I'll give this one a stab. We've been doing enrollment study after enrollment study. We've brought in statistical forecasting multiple different times. We've done our own forecasting, local consultants as well, and we consistently come up with over the next 5 to 10 years that we're going to be within 420 to 440 students. By 2026-27, we'll probably have about 100 less based upon the projections. Now, you can't really get a good gauge of what's going between years 5 and 10. Nobody's going to put their name on a 10-year projection because things change. However, what's that?
And the children have.
Well, yeah. But based upon, rational estimates, they feel that it's going to hold true, that trend. And if you look at our elementary classrooms right now, they're in anywhere between, we're getting kindergarten enrollments of, less than 400, right? So, that's definitely different than in the years past, and you could follow that trend throughout time. However, at the high school, we need to update our facilities. If you take a look at 60-year-old tech rooms, which I hope people come to on December 5th, you'll see why when we do bring our students over, why we need to make sure that we have modern, flexible facilities, not just in the tech world, but in the art, in music areas as well. We need to renovate some spaces, to recapture some classroom space, to redesign some workroom space for our staff, which, by the way, there's been constant updates and ongoing conversations with our staff about workrooms and how we can use and maximize workrooms to meet their needs as well. I know that Troy has been working closely with Fairport High School team on trying to accommodate that. So those are the reasons why we need to change some of the structures in here, update some of the structures in here. That's why December 5th is an important date, so people can come and actually see. Let's walk through those tech areas, and you can see where we're trying to put robotics, or where we're trying to have a graphic design class, or a NASA Hunch program, which it's a multidisciplinary program where you need flexible open spaces, not confined limiting spaces. And I think Dr. White spoke to robotics, and I know that I hope someday your children get to experience robotics at the high school. Right now, we cannot participate robotics here at the high school because of space. So those are the things that we're looking to achieve with that particular.
Yeah, the tech space is aidable, so.
I think that's, Matt, do you
The
want to?
tech, yeah, and Matt can talk better, but
Yep.
the
The bump
tech
out.
additions are aidable, so I feel like it's the right time to do it.
Yep, yeah, one of the special aid pieces that the state will provide for building aid are tech additions or STEAM additions, science, tech, engineering, arts, and math areas. And that's, we can try to capitalize on some aid ability for a portion of that reconstruction or addition work to take place outside of our building. So that's something we keep in mind when we talk about any building additions. What is it that the state will allow for aid, and where can we capitalize on that piece as a whole?
But so the question I've gotten a lot, and it's aligns with the next one. Well, our class sizes used to be much bigger. Why can't we just fit Minerva?
If you take a look at what we've done here in our schools, I'm just trying to get to my cheat sheet.
You should have this memorized.
Yeah, I do. I just want to make sure that I'm accurate 100%. We've had different programming, and, as far as our special ed services for students, we have more programming in school within our district, more so than we.
So clarify that for me. So in prior years, we used to send kids out of district, so
Yep.
they weren't a Raider.
Yep, we've expanded our programming, and
And
we've,
so we're making sure they're here.
yep, so that they can have 12 to 1 for classrooms, special education classrooms, integrated co-teaching models are prevalent here. There's classrooms where students meet with their special educator, and that's been growing throughout the last several years. We have an English language learners program, which these are students who come to our country. They need programming. There's mandates and facilities, which again, we're honored to serve these children and make sure that they have the right environments to get a program. When I started here close to 20 years ago, we were about 80 English language learners. Now we're anywhere between 150 to 180 per year, depending on the students. And with those students, they classroom, the teachers need rooms and spaces to meet with them. Mental health services have expanded greatly. Alternative education program has expanded greatly. Safety and security, we dedicated a whole area to create a whole new office suite. We lost multiple classrooms there, so we're trying to take space there. We talked about the STEAM programming that is essential in giving students an area where they can have a modern, flexible environment so students can experience our expansive programming. And again, we have computer design, web design, woodworking. You take a look right now at our auto shop, the lift is limiting. The number of periods that you can use that classroom is 4 out of a 8-period day. So we need to maximize opportunities so students can use these spaces. And again, the list is extensive. We're proud to offer these programs, but we need to make sure that we have the right facilities to do that in. So yes, things have changed. The building, the needs, the programs have changed. And we need to configure our spaces to accommodate our 9th graders coming over.
And I think in the latest video that you can fast forward through my part, but there's a lot of good pictures and video footage where students are kind of showing what the, like you said, the garage and the music rooms and how small they are, how we need more space, we need places to put musical instruments. So it's just, yeah. I would take a look at the video because it definitely shows some great images of why we need more space.
The video is certainly on our Fairport Forward website, and we've put it on our social media. We'll continue to do that as we move through that. But that's why December 5th will be another opportunity to do a walkthrough as well.
Brett, I was wondering, it's one of the questions, but I was wondering if you could talk to, when we did a thought exchange with the community prior to this, AC was a big passionate issue for a lot of people, and certainly for kids when it's warm in June and even September, and for teachers, for paras, like it's a real issue. And I know that's a weird thing to say when I drove here in the snow, but I am just wondering if you could kind of address the AC question and kind of the thought process and kind of where you landed and what's in this project for that.
We know that it's a priority, and we know that it helps support a comfortable learning environment, especially in some of these upper level spaces where there's multiple tiers. We understand it's a priority. It is not a part of Fairport Forward 2020-22, and Mr. Stevens will get into our approach and strategy when it comes to air conditioning.
Yep. So through any construction project development, it's about looking at the overall building condition survey, the requests across the district, and prioritizing those as a whole, and trying to match it up with spaces that we're actually doing the improvements in, so that we're structuring construction in a strategic manner. So as Mr. Provenzano mentioned, in the 2022 project, we did look at the spaces where reconstruction's taking place and place cost to those in terms of air conditioning and what it would cost there overall, in an effort to manage the overall impact to the taxpayer as a whole. It's not, air conditioning isn't included in spaces that we're reconstructing. However, for some of the new spaces, similar to the 2019 project, there is air conditioning going into place for such spaces like the any addition or any of the spaces that are new as a whole.
Like for example, the science classrooms, the cafeteria, the gymnasium, those are all slotted to be with the conditioned air.
Correct. So those are spaces in the existing project that we're able to capitalize on favorable bids through that process as well. We bid out this work as alternates as a whole as we look through that. So overall, always something on our mind, and identifying what spaces we can add air conditioning through in a project, and we'll continue to keep that in mind as we go through the design phase, the bidding phase of the project that we're in terms of the spaces that we're doing the reconstruction in.
We heard it loud and clear, though. You know, the community, you know, thinks that it's a priority, but we're trying to do it in a fiscally responsible way, a way that's incremental, and a way that you know, helps the taxpayer as well.
Just to confirm, Brian and Troy, I did get that correct about the STEAM edition, right? Yes. Thanks.
Yeah, STEAM edition. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've been telling people that.
The libraries are already air conditioned, so they're right. The steam we need to make sure that we talk about that. Yep. Thank you. Any other questions?
Brett, I think something else that came out loud and clear from the thought exchange is what's being done in the other buildings. I think our elementary schools are kind of asking as well, kind of what about us? And so if you could just talk a little bit about what will be happening at Brooks Hill, JA, Dudley, and Northside.
I was really pleased, actually, when I received feedback on the thought exchange, because people recognized the fact that all of our buildings needed work. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing more than I know that this board would want to make sure that all of our buildings get the work that they need, that the spaces are renovated so they can be flexible and comfortable and meet the needs of a changing program, changing populations. In order for us to achieve everything that we wanted to achieve, the tax burden would be, I'm not even going to guess, it wouldn't be right or fair. The purpose of Fairport for 2020-22, one of the main purposes, is to transition students from Minerva Land to Fairport High School. And as you look through the project, you'll see that there's not a lot of work occurring at the other buildings, right? Mr. Stevens will talk a little bit about some of that work, but we acknowledge that. But we also acknowledge the need for future prioritization, future capital projects on trying to address those needs much in great fashion. So Mr. Stevens is going to talk a little about how we've, you know, addressed some needs throughout the years and what we might be doing in the future with Fairport for 2020-22.
Yep, so on the screen you can see kind of a summary of some of the work that's taken place at the elementary buildings in the past, currently ongoing, as well as you know, work that actually hasn't kicked off, and one of those is actually on the agenda tonight as a recommended approval for a bid for some flooring replacement over at Northside. A lot of the themes you can see here: roof replacement, some security upgrades, playgrounds replacements. There's a fair amount of site work that took place at Northside Dudley and Jefferson Ave regarding parking, student drop-off, bus loop area at Jefferson Ave. So there's been a lot of different pieces and themes that have taken place. Like Mr. Provenzano mentioned, the 2022 Fairport Forward project is primarily a focus on the high school. And I would add, there's even some work at the high school that we reduced out in terms of, you know, as we went through that process and had to identify additional work at the high school that was reduced out of the overall budget to try to balance the overall impact to the local share. Work taking place at our elementaries proposed in this project, looking to stay on our theme and approach of renovating kitchen cafeteria areas. So at Jefferson Ave, you see that area of budget that we have in this project. It's really balancing aid, the area, the different improvements that are needed within that have been identified in our building condition survey. So Jefferson Ave was identified of the elementary in most need with not just kitchen cafeteria, but other mechanical HVAC upgrades within the space. And also at Brooks Hill, you see also some mechanical direct digital control upgrades and improvements as a whole there. So again, looking at our areas across the district to have some improvements taking place at our elementary buildings as well. You see some other pieces at even the middle schools here, and bathroom replacements. Bathrooms, we did a large improvement to bathrooms here at the high school in a previous capital improvement project. And if we walk through any of our other buildings, we can identify and see that there are needs of bathroom upgrades across the entire district. So we have that budgeted for each one of our buildings in school buildings in this project as well, with the exclusion of Minerva Land, because there's no planned work in this project for Minerva Land. But the other buildings, there are bathroom improvements also budgeted here. And then as we look forward to future projects and identifying focus as a whole, we'll be looking at the improvements at our elementary buildings, recommended improvements in our building condition survey, as well as some of the different requests programmatically that will help us continue to move forward into the future.
Thank you. One question that continually comes up is what happens when we consolidate buildings? How will we use Minerva land? And what will we do with other district facilities, right? One of the priorities of Fairport 4 2022, in addition to the transitioning of ninth grade to the high school, is to begin our consolidation of buildings, right? Will take administrators who are housed at Balmer Place and distribute them to Minerva Land and Martha Brown. Martha Brown has usable space, functional office space that would be great use for our administrators and some of our instructional coaches to have them be in the building. And then we would take another group of staff and move them to Minerva Land, for example, special ed, student services, professional development, centralizing those important administrative roles in the middle of our district. We also, if you go over to Minerva Land right now, you're seeing the facilities being used, whether it's volleyball, basketball, the pool being used, the auditoriums. Our auditorium is constantly being used. Performances are currently held there. So we plan on keeping Minerva Land. It's a functional facility. It's a community need. As we move into the future even more, and it wouldn't be in this phase, but we plan on selling not only Balmer Place, but district offices and moving the district offices to Minerva Land in a centralized location. Again, using our facility to meet the needs of the district, because we still are a highly functioning, dynamic organization serving, over 5,000 students, and making sure that our staff have the resources that they need. We also will be looking for partnerships, perhaps with BOCES or other educational entities, to where we could use that facility to create some revenue as well. The board has also had early conversations about the potential of pre-K, right? How do we develop a pre-K program? Where would we house our pre-K program? We see that as a community need, a growing community need. We've had many community members reach out, and that would be another use to study as we move forward. So Minerva Land, beginning our consolidation and using it to fulfill our district needs in a reasonable, responsible way. Anyone want to speak to that or add to that? Detract?
Well, it leaves one left, right?
Yeah. Go for it, Peter.
No, the when does it start, right? So in terms of when we would start borrowing, so the $59 per year impact, we know we have reserves we would use first, Matt, but if you want to claim that, we would we would spend our reserves down and then borrow at the point when it was needed. So it's not an immediate impact, it's several years away.
Correct. So with the proposal to use $19.2 million from our capital building reserve, those would be the funds used first in this project for the design, as we move through the design phases, in moving through that piece. And then as we look forward in the future years, anticipating our first short-term borrowing to take place no sooner than July of 24, which really, with that one-year borrowing, has that first hit the budget in the 25-26 fiscal year. So that's as we utilize the capital building reserve funds first to move through, and then as we go through the SED design approval phase and bidding, to not have to borrow until, again, we work to try to cross that fiscal year. So when we do the borrowing in July for a 1-year borrowing, it first hits the budget in the following fiscal year of 25-26. So very similar thing happened with the 2019 project in terms of the number of years out as we utilize those capital reserve funds until our first borrowing. So it doesn't happen immediately. It's not right away or next year that it hits. Really important to know that we do have that capital building reserve money to help us get through the beginning phases of this design work.
Give us all time to plan.
Do you want to speak to the timeline? I mean, since you mentioned it, I mean, it's this is a process, and you spoke to when the dollars, the community will see the tax impact. But.
Sure. Yep. So again, 2022 would be the proposition in December. So next month for the vote. If approved, we then move forward with the full in-depth design phase, where there'll be further meetings with user groups. So usually the spaces that we'd be doing reconstruction in to get additional feedback as we really narrow in on the design itself, and the spaces and the finishes and some of those different pieces. And then it gets submitted to the state education department. You can see that kind of happening in 23, the plan and design. And then early 24, anticipating, the bid process. So once we receive SED approval, we can move forward with the bid process. Like I said, that lines right up with the timeline I was speaking to in terms of July of 24, till we really are looking at needing the cash or anticipating the cash for construction contracts. Once we award bids, construction taking place later on in 24 in our fiscal year, and happening through 25. And then in 2026, the 26-27 school year is when we first anticipate Minerva Land students moving over to Fairport High School. So it's a long timeline. When you see construction from start to end, till construction's actually finished. If you remember, the 2019 project was voted on in 19. Here we are in 22 with still additional construction taking place even through summer of 23. So.
And you'll note in 2026-27, that's when you'll see the sale of Bomber Place, the anticipated sale of Bomber Place.
So once we're out of Minerva Land, very important to note that, is then when we can proceed through that process of moving staff out of Bomber Place, and then next steps would be to pursue the sale of Bomber Place. So it will take some time as we move through that process, but just to give an idea, that's when you see that at the tail end in the lower right-hand corner of the timeline up on the screen is when we begin that process.
And you'll be a fifth grader this year. You are a fifth grader this year, and you will be the first class, anticipated class, in 2026. 27.
All right.
Any other questions?
Okay, there are, as you've noted before then, we have one more informational meeting, then also the walkthrough. So the 29th of November, right, and the 5th.
Yep, please feel free to visit capitalprojects.fairport.org. You'll see all sorts of information, videos, frequently asked questions that we just reviewed, renderings. There's a special edition commentator that will be coming soon in people's homes. So, as always, please let us know if you have any questions.
And I would really urge anybody watching a streamer here, if you haven't been to an information session, please consider coming. It's your chance to ask questions of the district, kind of really get into the details on this one. This is kind of the higher level overview that I present here, but you can really get into the nitty gritty at those sessions. And I think among us have been to all of them and been impressed with the questions, impressed with how the community is engaged with this on both sides. And I think that hearing those concerns, hearing your questions is important to all of us on this. So if you can come, please do.
Okay. So policy first read. Again, our policy committee very active, right? We have a lot of first reads on the agenda. So a motion to approve the first read, to get a motion, then have some discussions around some of these. Brian, thank you. A second. Jan, a second. So we have a motion, but questions and comments? I believe there are some. So
yeah. So we don't have to go through every single one for time. I know, Caitlin, I know this. You would love nothing more. But I guess on some of them, first of all, kudos to the policy committee. This is yeoman's work that you guys are doing on all of this, and I appreciate you bringing us up to date on all of this. But there are some, I'm blanking on which one, like the sorry, I'm going back and forth. Like 7310, student conduct and discipline, I believe is all crossed out. The patriotism, citizenship, human rights education has some change. There are a lot of changes on all of these. And can you just kind of describe why these, what was the thinking behind some of the changes, the striking out and all of that?
So first and foremost, most of our changes come from BOCES. So Erie to BOCES provides a COSER service that we buy into, and the legal changes as state ed passes things, as the legislature passes things, they'll provide us updates to our policies. So a lot of it is just legality changes that come through to us and we can update. In terms of 7310, so remember back in June, me and my binder of all of the policies, reading them, we had some redundancies. So 7310, for example, the student conduct, we have 3410, which is also our student code of conduct. So they overlapped. So as we were going through, well, why have two that say the same thing when we have one in place? So we can start retiring ones that have redundancies.
Yeah, so if it's all crossed out, in sense, it means it's being retired, which I wish we could mark it, but you can't.
Turn the mic on. Can you speak a little bit to 8241, the patriotism, citizenship, and the human rights education one, and some of the changes that were made, some of the I know some things crossed out, some things added. Just kind of walk through that one a little bit.
Yeah, so this one was an Erie 2 policy that had kind of been overlooked a few years ago. So we tightened it up, and then we spent a good amount of time digging in, much appreciation to Ellen Reed for what is happening in our humanities classes. How do they dive into Constitution Day, and how do they meet the New York State standards related to this? And so we wanted to tighten it up to what our educators are actually doing. So they are bringing these into the classrooms. But in particular, the old policy had said it had to happen on September 17th. Well, anybody who knows what's happening in education, assigning a certain date to just certain topic, it never works out. It never flows the way you would hope it to flow. So getting rid of the date, but still ensuring that this is happening.
And like the one of the things crossed out is attention to genocide, slavery, including the Freedom Trail, Underground Railroad, the Holocaust, mass starvation in Ireland. Just to be clear, like that stuff's still being taught. It's just being taken out of the policy language.
Yeah. Correct. So
okay, yeah.
When it says the related to patriotism, citizenship, and civic education, our shared history of diversity, the role of religious tolerance and human right issues, rather than then having that clause at the end that has specifics, it keeps it more broad. Yeah. So if you wanted to dive into something, the mass starvation in Ireland, you can compare and contrast it with something else. It keeps it more open for our educators to do their magic of teaching.
Which is the point of a policy, is to be that more open STEM. Yeah, thank you.
And there's usually regulations that go along with it, and obviously New York State standards, so.
No, thank you. Other areas, right, Rwanda, the atrocities of that, right, other things that they can now bring in as time has marched on, and unfortunate or other positive things as well. It made me wonder, though, in the terms of the questions as we looked at all these, Brian, as well, if it might not be helpful for us to consider on board docs putting a key.
I was going to ask about the colors.
For those who, the public also who comes in and sees, because I know we have green, purple, red. They mean things, where they come from, what they were. Some of them are from BOCES. Is it possible just to put on board docs? Here's what the keys are relative to policy changes.
So nobody knows.
No, I
it does
do.
mean something. I've had training on it.
I know what it means. It's who made the edits on the Google Docs. So we, as we're collaborating on these, we've created Google Docs of them so that we can track the changes. So different people making different changes changes the color. So we could say which changes are related to a BOCES change and which are related to a policy change. Maybe that would work better.
Yes.
But the colors are
It's all available in the link.
Okay.
If you look in the link, there's the note of who made the change.
but making it public, because we can't open the Google Doc to the public, because then people could change it. So what we do is download a PDF. So you're just seeing the outlines, but if you open the Google Doc, you would see who exactly it is.
Right.
But we can put a comment on the PDF and say, this is a BOCES change, this is a policy committee decision change.
Also helps with people who are colorblind who can't tell that there's a different color text.
I hadn't thought of that because I'm not colorblind, but right. No, I just know over the years, I've gotten used to the color differences and who's recommending what versus our own grown, self-grown versus BOCES and regulations and legal, blah, blah, blah. I just think maybe that is helpful to those who follow. And we are doing a massive revamp. I say massive, we're goal of getting through all of our policies in a shorter time period, so that means.
But I do think, but again, thank you. This is helpful. Thank you for the work you guys have done. And I think labeling the changes is super helpful for us too, to say, okay, new BOCES language, okay, new state ed requirement on an update. That's
If you look at the bottom, a lot of times you're going to see where it says like education law as well.
But then you can mark like this paragraph, it was changed because of a BOCES change. This paragraph.
because the policy committee.
I don't.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. We'll have to look in terms of what can be entered into board docs. I'm not sure if we can put in there like BOCES change.
So these are just downloaded off of the Google Docs, so we can put a comment through PDF. So as somebody opened this, it would show it in the PDF.
You'd have to do that then with everyone. Is there not a generic way to put a single document out there, PDF document that says, when you see this color, or will the color change? Like
The color is very fluid.
Yeah,
If
okay.
if I'm logging in,
So you
from-
would have to be per
yeah,
document.
If I'm logging in from Brian's computer, it's giving another color.
Well, when I got training, there used to be a time when it was very specific that there
In
there
board
was-
docs, but board docs was kind of limiting us in who could make edits. This allows us to all work a little more collaboratively. And since we finance the Google Chrome or Google suite of options, might as well use what we have out there.
And another important thing with our policies is that there's feedback to the committee from multiple sources. These go past, if it's, excuse me, maybe administration has to see it. If it refers to something that they do, it could come from the nurse's office. It could come from, counselors, whatever it is surrounding. Those people give us feedback. It runs through the lawyer when we have anything questionable before we change certain things. It comes from BOCES, so there are multiple people that will, help
And
us write these policies.
Yeah,
And-
I if it's possible, I would love that notate that it doesn't have to be specific as who it is. I don't.
No, I don't
but-
say it for that reason. I'm
No.
saying it just so that everybody understands how much goes into this. This isn't, we're the final say.
Yeah.
Tonight, the six of us here are the final say. But before we get here,
Yeah, but that
it goes through lawyers
Yeah,
and BOCES.
I think that would help us just to know this is a change that policy committee thinks
Yeah.
we're making.
Yeah,
This is
I
our
agree.
language.
It would
Oh,
make
this
it
is
easier.
a language that new BOCES thinks that
Yeah.
we're following. So
Agree.
anyway, we've talked way longer than I meant to on that. Sorry.
We can keep going.
As many as we're
I
going to
know the
see,
feeling.
it could be helpful.
And I know Pam
that a
has
piece?
done a huge transition over into making this process easier because there have been a lot of updates. So
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Okay, so with that discussion, we've already had the motion and a second. Any other comments? All in favor of the first read as outlined? Any opposed? None. 6-0. So policy second read, meaning we saw these last meeting.
Sorry, in this case, it was 2 meetings ago, but it just,
Yes.
agenda-wise.
All right, thank you. 2 meetings ago, if they're looking for it, right on the agenda, the first read. Thank you. Motion to approve the second reading. Ryan?
Second?
Second, Joyce. Questions or comments about this? No? All in favor? No opposed? 6-0. School-sponsored field trips. I continue to see these long lists. Love it. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, we got 3. Pick Mary Caitlin.
excited.
A second, right? And Joyce seconded. Comments or questions?
Yeah, can I hear a little bit more about our Black Student Union trip? They're headed to HBCUs, and this is our district is kind of spearheading throughout Monroe County. I'd love to hear more.
We could definitely talk more about it and give specific details. Dr. Tanya Wilson, David Nason, she has been spearheading it, collaborating with other districts, and I know some other districts have been doing it, so we're just trying to provide experiences and opportunities for our students of color to get exposure to multiple different universities, historically black colleges and universities. And we're going to be taking a field trip, also making it a recruiting trip as well for potential employees, future employees. That's why that advocacy is critically important, as Dr. Moritz was speaking to in the beginning, so we can get some staff coming over. But this is an opportunity for our students to be exposed to historically black colleges and universities, and make that a part of their potential choice for colleges.
And it could be any student if they're
It could
interested.
be any student can participate.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah,
exciting.
I'm excited about the collaboration with the other school districts and looking for future donors as well, and doing some bright spots on how we're supporting that imperative.
Other questions or comments? All in favor? No opposed, 6-0. School fundraisers, specifically high school club fundraisers. Motion to approve. Erica, Joyce, second. Questions or comments about these fundraisers? No? All in favor? No opposed, 6-0. This has been referenced a little bit, but the 2022 capital outlay project with Northside, need a motion to approve, and then we can get to any discussions or questions. Ryan, thank you. Second. Jan, questions or comments about this?
What exactly is happening at Northside? What are
There's just some partial flooring replacement as much as a capital outlay project could cover and get us. So just kind of in the front area, also trying to coincide with the secure vestibule and work that's taking place in there also. So just really kind of in that front area, going left and right of the main entrance.
It's a $100,000 project, which is aidable, right? So the state gives us an opportunity to take advantage of aid. It helps us with. It is a need. That floor at Northside Dudley is tired, and it's one of the originals. So we need to make sure that we're protecting our investments. There is great renovation occurring in phase 2, which we'll be talking about as we move through the summer months. But it's a way to meet a need and get at some of that elementary work that we were talking about earlier. Right.
Yep.
Correct.
Correct. And you can see here from this bid, it's just under 100,000. So, this tends to happen with capital outlay projects because there's limited dollars. We have to have some design work that takes place, just like in a larger capital project. So, the funding source will be both the capital outlay, and either we look at general fund or we look at the existing capital funds that we have for the existing project to see if we can just have two different funding sources to help out with that work. So.
Thanks, Mr. Stevens.
Any other questions? No? All in favor? Any opposed? None. 6-0. A cooperative participation agreement for dental plan administration. Motion to approve. Erica, Jan, second. Questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? No opposed, 6-0. The school tax summary in the public section, a motion to approve. Brian, thank you. Second. Jan, second. Questions or comments about this? I really rounded down at 78 million in taxes, not 70, but another 8 million, another $8,000 in interest in 10 days. Okay. I'm sorry. All in favor? Any opposed? None. 6-0. And then donations. This is an incredible donation by the Dudley PT. Oh, I'm so sorry. Agreement for professional consultant services. Thank you for keeping me in line. I have a motion to approve. Second. Mary Caitlin, thank you. And directly related to right? But questions, comments? Do you want to elaborate a little bit on what this is actually for those who are watching?
Sure. This is an agreement with Imaginate Your Space. Essentially what they do is our food service department connects with them, and they help with signage and really livening up in cafeteria kitchen area. So our director of food service worked closely with the Dudley principal to really kind of share some of the improvements. So, food service will cover some of the signage and improvements within the kitchen area, and then Dudley and partnering with, I don't want to jump too far ahead into the agenda, but PTA to look at helping out with the remaining portion in the cafeteria area. So we did some of these improvements at Jefferson Ave and Brooks Hill. So if you've been in those kitchen cafeterias, they really added some signage and tried to create some themes and working with the building of, what do they want to look for themes and try to, liven up the area as a whole. So.
Thank you. In that document, you see professional fees of $43,000 was being approved. The next one, I jump a little ahead, is a donation by the Dudley PTA to cover almost half of that, $20,000. That's incredibly generous by that PTA. But a motion to approve? Any opposed? No. 6-0, right? No abstention? I don't want to necessarily assume, right? So that takes to I.
We knew you loved Brooks Hill, but like.
Motion, it says motion to approve. I feel like it's accept, but approve the donation from the Dudley PTA on behalf of the project NH. Mary Caitlin, thank you. Joyce, was that second? Other than a great thank you to the PTA, other comments? I mean, it's an incredible, generous donation on top of other things they've already donated, Gaga ball pits and other things. Right?
As a Dudley
flags.
PTA alum, just incredible shout out to them for this. This is amazing.
Yeah, it's an amazing amount of their fundraising going to this. So, all in favor?
Aye.
No opposed, 6-0.
First or second on that? Oh, it was
First, Mary Caitlin.
Oh, you still on donation?
Yeah.
Okay. We're just slow. I thought we were down to bid and I was like. No.
No. So right now, motion to accept
No, I
the bid
screwed it up for a moment,
recommendations
so we just got lost.
for snow removal. Perfect timing considering that we arrived in snow.
Oh, are you?
Mary Caitlin's a first, second,
second.
Erica. You're anticipating a question?
I
you have
thought
the
someone was
answer?
going to ask a question, and I think there was only one option, so that's all I was going to say. I was anticipating someone saying, how many were there?
Bids?
Yes. And when we discussed it, right, in terms of the agenda meeting, the one, it was like, well, because who has capacity, and
Nobody wants.
there's very few. They haven't planned for it for this winter yet, then they haven't planned for us at all, right? As a district-wide, our snow removal needs. But that seemed to be the case. All in favor? No opposed, 6-0. And finally, K, Medicaid Compliance Officer, motion to approve this appointment as outlined. Erica?
Second.
Mary Caitlin, second. Questions or comments? No? All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed? 7-0. 6-0. Thank you. Wow, defaulted back. Comments, and open up the floor for comments before motion to enter into executive session. No? We're commented out?
I think I've exceeded my comments for the evening.
I was keeping tally.
I'll
Yes.
make a quick comment, just a thank you to all of those involved at Jefferson Ave last night. On a serious note, conversation that nobody wants to have, but thank you, Brett and Sam, Ryan, there was several more there.
The sheriff's office.
Sheriff's
County Sheriff,
office.
Deb Miles.
Deb Miles, yes, thank you. Thank you for being there to be open to the concerns of our community. And thank you for being open to everybody and understanding the high emotions that come with those kind of conversations. So,
Rightfully so.
yeah.
And thank you to the community members who came out. It was
Yes.
a emotional at times, kind of a raw meeting at sometimes, but necessary meeting, I think, for everybody. So thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, to all who are out there then, may you have a wonderful Thanksgiving, safe travels to those who are traveling, and a great break for our staff and students, well-deserved always. We hope it is a wonderful experience and come back rejuvenated shortly thereafter. And healthy. That's right. So with that, we will make a motion into executive session, but we have no intention of making any decisions afterwards. So when we reconvene into open session, we will also adjourn immediately thereafter. So a motion to enter. Brian, thank you. Second. Jan, second. All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed? Very good. We are going into executive session. Thank you all for attending and watching tonight.
I feel like I should have prizes.